Good afternoon. Welcome to another OptionsPlay webinar. Today's topic is Gain a Directional Edge. My name is Scott Green, Marketing Director with Regal Securities. Today, Tony Zhang from OptionsPlay will go over top-down approach, relative strength and analysis, bullish and bearish examples. He'll go over some live trading examples and more. For those who are new, joining our OptionsPlay webinar for the first time, this is the fourth in our series. OptionsPlay is a tool on your trading platform to help you with analysis, strategy, and research for trading options. It was recently relaunched to be more highly integrated with your trading platform. It's available for live trading accounts. So if you just have a paper trading account, you won't see it. You must have a live trading account in order to access it. And I'll be introducing our presenter, Tony Zhang from OptionsPlay. He'll go over the tool and the strategies. And then at the end, we'll have 15 minutes for Q&A. And if you have any problems accessing the OptionsPlay tool, it should be there available, but you'll need to contact your broker's customer service number for any assistance with that. So that said, I just need to share this disclaimer. The types of securities, forms, and research tools used in this webinar are for demonstration purposes only and should not be considered a recommendation by Regal Securities or a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any options. This webinar will be recorded and is not intended to be used for individual tax, legal, or investment planning advice. So as always, I want to give the proper introduction to the great Tony Zhang, the Chief Strategist at OptionsPlay, who will be presenting this afternoon for us. Tony has spent 12 years in the financial services industry, and he oversees the OptionsPlay development team, and they've led to some of the most innovative tools in options trading and analysis. OptionsPlay is currently embedded with several major sell-side brokerage firms as well as a direct-to-consumer platform. And Tony helped build the product suite and bring it to market, both institutional and retail markets. And he's also developed and managed many of OptionsPlay's partnerships. So before Tony begins, just want to point out where you can find OptionsPlay. Again, it should be on your live trading account on one of the tabs across the top. Right here, you can just click on that tab and your screen should look like this. So with that being said, I'll let Tony take it from here. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. As he said, my name is Tony Zhang. I am the Chief Strategist here at OptionsPlay, and I'm here to talk to you guys about gaining a directional edge. And the reason we're here to talk about this is because whether you're trading stocks or options, you need to have a reliable directional view on the stocks or ETFs that you're analyzing in order to trade those stocks or ETFs. So today we're going to be talking about the tools that's available to you within OptionsPlay that allows you to gain a view on a bullish or bearish view on any underlying stock or ETF using the tools that's available to you here at Regal Securities. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time out this afternoon to attend the fourth webinar in our series. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to do a few more. I'm really happy to come here and show you guys the tool and show you how we designed this tool so that you can see the power of what is available to you. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few different things. I'm going to try to spend as little amount of time on the slides as possible. What I really want to spend as much time as possible is showing you guys some real examples of the things that we're teaching here today. So what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to first talk a little bit about the concept of a top-down approach. Because when we're talking about gaining a directional edge or trying to find trades that have the highest probability of moving higher or moving lower, we want to line up ourselves with the market. So we want to talk a little bit about what the top-down approach is and how you should consider using it. Then we'll talk about trend and relative strength analysis. These are the two primary indicators that we use to gauge a directional view on any underlying stock or ETF. So I want to take the time to go through each one and show you guys why you should consider using them. Then we'll talk about how you use these two indicators to gain a directional edge. And then we'll give you some examples of bullish and bearish examples using trend and relative strength. And then what we'll do is we'll end this session going through some real examples on the platform, pulling up some stocks and ETFs to look at to show you how we read the indicators that are given to you on the platform. And this is all designed so that we help facilitate, number one, giving you a view on any underlying stock, and then showing you how to actually leverage that into an options trade using the tool OptionsPlay, which is available to you free of charge at Regal Securities. So let's start off. Before I launch right into this, can everyone type into the chat window yes? If you've traded options before, or if you've traded options before, please type yes into the chat window, just so I have a feel for who's in the room. And if you have not traded options, please type no. Okay, so a few no's, but primarily almost every single one of you have answered yes, which is okay. So I'll spend a little less time talking about options, spending most of my time talking about kind of just how to read these underlying stocks. And then how many of you use technical analysis in your trading? If you use technical analysis, type TECH, tech, into the chat window, just so I have a feel for who's in the room. Okay, a lot of you guys use technical analysis. I use technical analysis heavily in my trading. So, and I've worked with clients for about over 10 years now. So I've seen all different types of techniques to read the markets and decide whether a stock is bullish or bearish. What I really want to focus on today is two very simple indicators that allows you kind of filter out the noise. Because if any of you have ever used technical analysis, you'll know that there's infinite number of indicators and periods that you can use, and different types of strategies that you can use. And sometimes that can get a little overwhelming. So today what we want to do is the exact opposite. We want to simplify your lives. We want to take all the different technical analysis knowledge that we know and simplify it down to a few different indicators to give you an idea as far as whether a stock is in a bullish or bearish phase, and then give you the tools to find high probability setups, okay? So in order to do that, we're going to talk first about what is the top-down approach. The top-down approach is really simple. It's really taking a look at the overall market first, then looking at the individual sectors within that market before looking at individual stocks within a sector. And in order to find high probability setups, the top-down approach gives us two paths. If you're looking for bullish ideas, then you typically want to identify a bullish market before you identify a strong or bullish sector within that market. And then within that sector, identify strong and bullish stocks within that sector. So that's how you typically will try to find bullish ideas. If for bearish ideas, you want to identify a bearish market first, then look for the weak sectors or the bearish sectors within that market, then look for the weak and bearish stocks within that individual sector. So it's really this idea of top-down approach, meaning don't start looking for stocks first. First, look at the overall market. Is the overall market bullish or bearish? Then are the sectors within that market, which ones are strongest, which ones are weakest, and then filtered at that point down into individual stocks. So we'll show you that in 1 second, but I really want to make sure that everyone understands this concept of top-down approach, because that's how you'll be able to find the highest probability setups when everything lines up with the individual stock that you're looking at. So if you're looking for bullish stocks, make sure you're finding that stock in a strong sector that's also in a bullish market. That will give you the highest probability of that stock going higher. Vice versa, on the bearish side, if you're looking for a bearish stock, you should look in bearish sectors within a bearish market. That will give you the highest probability of a bearish move on an individual stock. So let's talk about how do you actually define strong sector and bullish sector and weak sector and bearish sector. So there's two primary things that we want to look at. And again, this goes back to my work as a technical analyst, working with clients over the last 12, 15 years. seeing all different types of ways that you can utilize technical analysis. There's literally infinite number of ways. And I spent a lot of time researching a lot of these tools, a lot of different charting packages, testing out lots of different strategies. And what it's really brought me back to is really simplifying things. And for any of you that have used technical analysis, you've probably found yourself in this situation where, if you're bullish on a stock, you might be trying out different moving averages or different indicators or different Bollinger Bands, whatever techniques you use, you typically will keep searching for different technical indicators until you find one that supports your views. And you might use moving averages this time, and then you might use RSI next day, and then you might use Bollinger Bands the day after. And what we see is that people find inconsistent results because they're not consistently using the same indicators every single day. And if you're a technical analyst, you're probably constantly searching for new indicators and new ways to analyze the market. So it's a constantly changing landscape, and that's why we see a lot of people find inconsistent results when they're trying to use technical analysis. So what we want to do is create a framework that really simplifies things for you down to just two things. So we want to look at what the overall trend of a stock is, and then we want to look at relative strength. So trend analysis is pretty simple. In theory, it's trying to predict the future direction of a stock based on the based on the past data of that underlying stock. So if any of you have used charts, anything from basic price analysis to moving averages to drawing trend lines or channels, these are the types of techniques that technical analysts have deployed to try to predict future prices based on the historical price of the underlying stock. So it's very simple. I think most people that have used technical analysis are familiar with this concept. The second part that I want to explain is relative strength. This is some of you may be familiar. This is not as popular of a use, but relative strength is really comparing the performance of a stock to the overall market. And this is really a concept of strong stocks, or stocks that are outperforming are likely to continue outperform, and stocks that are underperforming are likely to underperform. And this is really due to the fact that institutional money is usually benchmarked to a benchmark or has to perform based on a benchmark. And if a stock is outperforming its benchmark, an institutional money manager will most likely keep that in their portfolio. And if there's any stocks that are underperforming the market and it's causing them to potentially not miss the benchmark, then they're typically going to sell those stocks and not hold on to those in their portfolio. So you have this constant rotation of stocks that go in favor and stocks that go out of favor, and relative strength allows us to measure that and understand which stocks are in favor and which stocks are out of favor. So some of the simplest ways to do this is simply dividing the stock price by an index like the SPX. And that allows us to know whether this stock is currently outperforming the market or underperforming the market. There are other more sophisticated models like rankings, like Stock Charts has a technical rank that they use to score stocks. IBD has a scoring system as well that they publish every single day that lets you know how strong a stock is. Zacks has their own Morning Stars. There's no shortage of these types of ranking indicators, but they're all based on the same fundamental idea that stocks that outperform the market are likely to continue to outperform, and stocks that underperform are likely to continue underperform. And relative strength lets us quantify which stocks are doing what. So now that we understand these are two separate ways to identify whether a stock is bullish or bearish, I do want to point out that each one of them on their own has limitations. So if any of you have ever used moving averages or used trend lines, you'll know that they tend to work in certain times and they don't work in other times. So there are limitations to each one, and relative strength doesn't tell you how strong a stock is compared to what it was a month ago. So a stock could be very strong in terms of relative strength, but it could have been stronger a month ago. So we really want to use a combination of the two to help negate some of the shortcomings that each one of them has. And that's really what I want to show you guys here today, is not looking at each one of these individually, but how do you combine these two how do you combine these two to give it a better visual approach of what's currently going on with each underlying stock. So to gain a directional edge, what you need to do is apply a consistent and methodical application of trend and relative strength. So like I said, there's lots of different ways to analyze trend, and you may have your own ways to analyze trend. We have our own indicators. We use our 1 month and 6 month trend indicator. My point here is that it doesn't really matter how you use it, or I'm sorry, it doesn't matter which trend indicators you use. The important piece is to use the same ones over and over again. So not constantly changing from moving averages today to trend lines tomorrow to a different technique the next day. You want to use the same technique, and that's what we allow you to do. Is we provide the 1 month and 6 month trend. We'll tell you whether a stock is in a bullish, bearish, or neutral phase. You'll tell you the current snapshot of the trend, and we'll actually show you how that trend has changed over time. So not only do you know what the current trend is today, you also know how long it's been in that trend for, and you can see it visually on your chart, which is really important. The second piece we have is relative strength. So we tell you what's called a technical score, and this will range from 1 to 10. It's available to you on your platform right above your historical chart, and it'll tell you how strong a stock is, and it'll rank it from a score of 1 to 10. 1 means these are the weakest stocks in the market. These are stocks that are severely underperforming the S&P 500. The 10s are the strongest stocks in the market. These are the stocks that are outperforming the S&P 500 by a wide margin. So this allows you to quantify whether a stock is outperforming or underperforming, and by how much. So now let's take a look at how you can use these two indicators alone to quickly identify whether a stock is in a bullish, bearish, or maybe it's even reversing. So that's what we're going to talk to you about today. We're going to show you 4 different examples, and like I said, we're going to spend as much time as possible on the platform going through some real symbols to show you real examples of each one. But the 2 that I want to start you off with is strong bullish and strong bearish. These 2 are relatively easy to remember. These are strong bullish stock is a stock with strong relative strength, meaning it's a stock that's outperforming the overall market, and it currently has bullish trends. So the relative strength and the trends all align with each other. These are stocks that have a relatively high probability of continuing going higher. Strong bearish is the exact opposite. These are stocks with weak relative strength, so stocks that are underperforming the market, and they have bearish trends. So these are the stocks that have the highest probability of continuing lower. So these 2 are what we consider trend following methods. So any of you that use moving averages, these are the types of strategies that you would typically use. You're following the trend. You're going with the trend. And then many of you are kind of contrarian traders. You like to pick bottoms or pick tops, right? So how do you actually identify a top or a bottom? So we have what's called a bullish turnaround. This is kind of picking bottoms. This is a stock with weak relative strength. So a stock that's currently underperforming the overall market. However, it's exhibiting bullish trends. That's telling us that this is a stock that's been beat up or a stock that's been underperforming the market, but it looks like the trends have started to turn around, and maybe it's starting to turn around, or at least it may have bottomed. So this is how we can identify stocks that are more likely to have bottomed. This is more of a contrarian trade. And then we have a bearish turnaround. This is stocks that have strong relative strength, stocks that are currently outperforming the market, but that trend has maybe come to an end. They've started to exhibit bearish trends. So these are the 4 different techniques that we'll show you guys and show you some real examples of. But just keep in mind that if you're a trend follower, you want to find stocks with strong relative strength and trends that match up with that, or weak relative strength with bearish trends. And for those of you that are contrarian traders that like to pick tops and bottoms, you want to search for relative strength and trends that are conflicting with each other, and that will give you an idea as whether a stock is topped or bottomed. So let's start taking a look at some real examples of this. So for those of you that are brand new to OptionsPlay, welcome. As Scott was saying at the beginning of the webinar, you can find OptionsPlay. It's a tab here on the upper right-hand corner that you can access OptionsPlay immediately, or if you don't have that, you can click on Add Widget and you can click on the OptionsPlay tab. This is a tool that's designed to help change the way you trade options. And the reason I say that is because any of you that have traded options before is familiar with the page that looks like this. It allows you to look at all the expirations and all the strike prices. And this is a tool that's very useful when you're trying to search in a large number of strikes to find the one that you're looking for. But many times, if you're not sure where to start, or you want to do some analytics, you're not able to do that on the option chain. And that's really where OptionsPlay comes into play. We show you options trading in a whole new visual format. So we have trade ideas and watch lists here on the left. I'll show you some watch lists that I've pre-built here. We have our equity analytics panel here in the middle. This is what I was showing you in the screen before. You have your 1 month and 6 month trend indicator here in the upper right hand corner of your chart, and you have your technical score, your relative strength score on a score of 1 to 10 right above your historical chart. And you can see how that trend has changed over time. So as you can see here, Visa turned bullish back here in mid-April, and notice how this has continued going higher the whole time, and the trend has pretty much stayed bullish the entire time. So not only do you know that it's currently bullish, you know that it's been bullish since mid-April. So this gives you some context as to how long the stock's been in this bullish trend for, which may help you decide whether you're going to be a trend follower or looking at contrarian type trades. And lastly, you have earnings, dividends, and price action data here at the very bottom. Now, what I'll do is I will cover this tool here on the right, which helps you find option strategies in 1 second. What I really want to focus a few minutes on is looking at some individual stocks and seeing how you can use our tools to quickly gauge a directional view on any underlying stock. So I'll start off with taking a look at where's the overall market. So you'll see the S&P 500 in the upper left-hand corner. As you can see, the 1 month and 6 month trends are bullish. So if any of you that are trading stocks right now, you've probably noticed this, but stocks have been in a pretty nice trend for the last few weeks. So the 1 month and 6 month trend here are both bullish. So I'm looking at a bullish market here. So if you want to looking at individual sectors, what I have is I've created a watch list here with all the different sectors. This is a great way to gauge which sectors are strong and which sectors are weak. And what you can do is you can sort the sectors based on the score. That's this relative strength indicator that I'm talking about here. When you sort it by the score, that allows you to very quickly see which sectors are weak and which sectors are strong. So as you can see, utilities and XLP, which is staples, consumer staples, these are the two weakest sectors in the market. So if I'm looking for bullish ideas, I'm probably not going to look in consumer staples or utilities. I'm going to look at sectors that are relatively strong. So you have technology, you have consumer discretionary, and you have energy. So if you're looking for bullish stocks in this bullish market, you want to look for ideas within the technology sector, within the consumer discretionary sector, and maybe the energy sector. So this allows you to quickly identify where is the current market, which sectors are strong, and then let's start taking a look at which stocks within that sectors are strong. So I've created a watch list here with some examples here, and what I've done is I've sorted it again by score. So I have the stocks that are weakest here at the bottom of my list. So Goodyear, Cigna, American, AIG. These are weak stocks. These are bearish stocks that I'm probably not going to look at. So if I'm looking for bullish stocks, I want to look for scores with high scores. So let's take a look at Apple real quick. As you can see, it's telling me that it's got a score of 8. So this is telling me this is a strong stock, outperforming the overall market, and the 1 month and 6 month trends are bullish. So this allows me to quickly identify that this is a stock that's outperforming the overall market. The trends are bullish. It's been bullish for quite a few days since May 2nd, and recently it broke above this 85 resistance level. So these are the types of candidates that I would be looking for if I'm looking for bullish ideas. Now, I do want to say that this is by no means a recommendation to trade these securities. This is simply I'm using these securities as illustrative purposes for educational use. But I do want to show you as many examples as possible. Same thing with Bank of America. This is a financial stock. As you can see, a technical score of 8. This is telling me this is a stock that's outperforming the overall market. As you can see, this is doing a little better than the overall market. And the 1 month and 6 month trends are bullish. So these are the types of stocks that I would be looking for if I'm looking for a bullish candidate and I want to find stocks with the highest probability of continuing higher. Is I want stocks that are not only outperforming the overall market, but the 1 month and 6 month trends are trending higher. Conversely, if I'm looking at the other end of the spectrum, here, let's take a look at Coca-Cola. As you can see on Coca-Cola, I got a technical score of 3. That means this is a stock that's underperforming the market. So if you pull up a historical chart, as you can see, the stock has been nothing but going down since the beginning of the year. That's why it's got a technical score of 3. So this helps me quantify that this not only is the stock underperforming, but the 1 month and 6 month trends are bearish. So it's trending lower. Not only is it weak, it's also trending lower. So these are higher probability bearish setups. But again, if you're looking for bearish ideas, be careful because you're currently in a bullish market. And the only thing is Coca-Cola is in the consumer staples sector, which happens to be a weak sector. So this might be, if you're looking for weak or bearish trades, this is where I would look, is weak stocks in a weak sector, which Coca-Cola happens to be in. So let's just take a look at a few other ones. So let's look at maybe Costco. Costco, as you can see, strong technical score, a score of 8, telling me this is outperforming the overall market, and the 1 month and 6 month trends are bullish. So this is telling me this stock is trending higher and it's currently outperforming the market. These are the types of stocks that I'm looking for if I'm a trend follower. Now let's take a look at some examples of some contrarian trades. Let's take a look at Cigna. As you can see, Cigna's got a score of 3. That tells me this is a stock that's underperforming the overall market. As you can see, this stock has done nothing except for go down since 2008. However, as you can see, recently, this stock is kind of bottomed. As you can see, it hit a low of around 165 back in mid-March, and throughout the end of March and early April, it kind of sat around and moved a little higher, and then came back down to around 168 and started to move higher again. And that's kind of when the trend started to turn neutral and bullish. So as you can see here, on May 11th, the trend started to reverse. So what this is telling me is that this is a relatively weak stock. It's been beat up, it's been oversold, but it's starting to turn around. The trends have started. It's no longer in a bearish trend, and that trend has started to turn around. So if you're looking to pick bottoms, or if you're looking to confirm that a stock has bottomed, these are the types of indicators that allow you to quickly do that without having to pull up a lot of different indicators. You don't have to figure out which moving average to use or which indicators to look at. This tells you right off the bat for any stock that you type in, whether the stock is in a weak sector, or if it's weak or strong, and then what the current trends are. And using these two in conjunction with each other gives you a much better picture than just looking at each one individually. Let's look at a few more examples here. CVS, same thing. CVS is a relatively weak stock, score of 3. So let's pull up a longer historical chart. As you can see, had a pretty strong start to the year and then a pretty miserable fall since then. It's clearly underperforming the overall market. But notice how the trends have started to bottom, and notice that there's been kind of a double bottom forming here around 60. This is a confirmation that 60 is likely a bottom here for CVS, and it's starting to trend a little higher. So these are the types of candidates that you'd be looking for if you're trying to pick some bottoms. Let me look at some other examples. Cisco. Cisco's the opposite here. So it's a technical score of 8, meaning a very strong technology stock. However, as you can see, the 1 month and 6 month trend have turned bearish and neutral, and it just did that a few days ago as it gapped down. So this is likely that this gap down is on earnings. But what this is telling me is that if you're long Cisco, then it might be time to consider taking profits, meaning this stock is likely to have topped, and the trend indicator gives me that confirmation that this is a strong stock, but that trend is starting to reverse. So if you're long the stock, it might be time to start taking profits. If you're long some options, it's also might be time to take profits. I wouldn't quite use this as a short yet because, again, it's got strong relative strength. It can still come back higher. So keep that in mind. You want to use these contrarian signals sparingly, or you want to be careful with this, or you might want to use this in conjunction with other forms of analysis. But the idea is that use the trend and technical indicators alone in conjunction with each other, to get a better picture of fully what's currently going on with the underlying stock. Let's see if we can find some more examples here. MetLife. MetLife score of 4, so a weak stock, underperforming the market. As you can see, it's kind of been going just sideways for quite a bit of time, but that indicator has started to turn bullish. So the 1 month and 6 month trend just turned bullish a few days ago. And as you can see, this $45 mark was pretty much a bottom here in early March, late March, early April, and then early May, and then it's continued moving higher since. So this is an indicator that maybe MetLife is no longer to continue going lower, and it's starting to trend a little higher. So if you're looking to pick some bottoms, these are the types of stocks that you might be looking out for. Now that we've gone through a few different examples so that you can type in any stock and quickly see kind of where a stock is, I do want to point out that you can actually get all of this information from just looking at the watch list. You don't even have to pull up the stock. And this is really why we built the watch list this way. We wanted to build a very visual platform so that you didn't have to look at each individual stock individually in order to see whether a stock is bullish or bearish. So as you can see, I sorted my watch list by my score, and notice how the stocks that are bullish have this kind of green, everything is green, and the stocks that are bearish are kind of all red. So Coca-Cola, as you can see, you have the red signal here on the left, which tells you the 6 month trend, and then you have the arrow here, which is the 1 month trend. So without even having to click on Coca-Cola, I immediately can tell that Coca-Cola is weak and it has a bearish trend, versus Apple or Bank of America has strong relative strength, and because it's green, that means it's trending higher. And as you can see on Cisco, it's got a high score, but it's got a red arrow and a yellow bar. This is telling me that this is a strong stock, but it's starting to turn around. So this allows me to look at my whole watch list without even having to click on it and know exactly which stocks are weak and continuing to move lower, which stocks are strong or continuing to move higher, and which ones are kind of in between. Right, so eBay's here. So as you can see, it's got a score of 5. So it's a relatively neutral stock, meaning it's performing with the market, but the trends are bearish, and it's been bearish for a few weeks now, since about April 27th. So this is a good, in conjunction with the resistance level here around 39. Notice how it broke below 39, came back to test that 39, and now starting to roll over again, started to move lower. These are the types of candidates that you can look out for using our tools to quickly identify a bullish or bearish setup on any underlying stock. So now that we've learned how to use the 1 month and 6 month trend with the technical score to gauge a directional view, let's start taking a look at how do you actually trade these. So if, let's say, I'm bearish on eBay, how do I actually take advantage of that? How do I trade options? And one of the things that I wanted to point out is traditionally you would pull up an option chain. You'd have to go through the different expirations. You have to pick an expiration date. You have to pick a strike price. Then you have to pick a strategy. Do you buy a call? Do you buy a put? Do you buy a put spread? What types of strategies do you use? And these are all the different types of things that you can do up here. So what we wanted to do is provide you those types of tools right here on OptionsPlay without having to pull up a chain. So you can click on I'm bearish for eBay and be presented with 3 bearish strategies. So you can either short the stock, you can buy a put, or you can buy a put vertical. And this is all designed to give you a starting point so that you don't have to first pick something in order to see some analytics. So here, if I shorted the stock, it cost me around $3,700 in margin. To buy a put only cost me $144. Buying this put vertical only cost me $118. And for those of you that are new to options, buying puts and put verticals, your risk is completely limited to what you pay. So instead of risking roughly $3,700, you're only risking $144 or $118. So this is substantially interesting. So as you can see, eBay is trading around 37 bucks right now. What if you think it's going to go down to 35 or $34? As you can see, you can model these specifically using our P&L simulator. That's something you can't do on an option chain. So if you bought this eBay 38 put and the stock goes down to $34, how much money do you make? For those of you that have trading for a while, you'd probably be able to roughly crunch those numbers in your head, but at expiration. But for those of you, but what if you close it out before expiration? How do you actually how do you actually calculate that? So that's really what we do here, is we allow you to quickly use these tools to say, what happens if the stock moves down to 35 bucks, halfway between now and expiration? What is my expected profit? Here, if you shorted the stock, you make a 6.5% return. If you bought this put, you make a 175% return. If you bought this put vertical, you make a 132% return. So this allows you to compare the two and say, okay, I should probably buy the put because I'll make a higher return if I'm correct. It also allows you to say, what happens if I'm wrong? What happens if eBay pops up and goes back up to 41 bucks? How much money do I lose? If you had shorted the stock, you lose $361. If you bought the put option, you lose $133. If you bought this vertical, you only lose $107. So you have actually substantially less risk from trading the options, and that's really why we show you this strategy here on the right gives you a higher options play score, because if the stock goes lower, you actually make a relatively similar return to buying a put. But if you're wrong, you're actually risking less money. So not only do we have to consider how much money can you make, you also have to consider how much money am I risking to do that. And that's really what the options play score tells you. So once you've honed in on a trade that you want to make, you can click on the trade button. And what we have is a strategy checklist. This is just looking for things to make sure you understand your risks before you place a trade. So you have whether you're trading with the trend of the stock. This is telling you you're trading against the trend of the market. So this is not saying you can't trade this. This is just letting you know that you're trading against the trend of the market. It's telling you have a good options play score, so a good risk to reward. There is no earnings between now and expiration. Very important thing to keep an eye out for before you trade options is when is that next earnings date? And lastly, spread and liquidity. How liquid is this option before you go ahead and place that trade? And one of the best parts about our integration with Regal Securities is that you can just simply click on the preview order button, and what that will do is it will actually launch the trade ticket with everything filled out for you. So you don't have to fill out anything manually. It all automatically does that for you. You can just type in the limit order or market order and click on verify to send that order out. This is all designed to facilitate you finding an option strategy as easy as possible. And if, let's say, you're a contrarian, maybe you disagree with all of our indicators and you're bullish on eBay and you think the stock's going to go higher, you can click on the I'm bullish strategy and it'll now show you 3 bullish ideas. So you don't have to necessarily agree with our indicators. Even if you use your own indicators, you can still use our tool to help you quickly identify what's a trading setup that I can use if I'm bullish or bearish on the stock, and then models what will actually happen. So if the stock goes up to $41 or $40, how much expected return do I have? If I bought the stock, I make a 5% return. If I bought the call option, I make a 94% return. If I bought the spread, I make a 159% return. So if you're brand new to options, this is designed to give you a starting point so that you can quickly start looking at some strategies and comparing them and deciding, if the stock goes higher, am I going to get the return I want? If the stock goes lower, am I risking more money than I want to? And for those of you that are already trading options, which most of you are, this is designed to save you time. Because if you have to pull up an option chain every single time and pick strikes manually, it takes a lot of time to fiddle around and figure out which strikes you want to buy, which strikes you want to sell. And if you want to change it, there's a lot of work that's involved because you have to do a lot of clicking around to change different strikes. So just by moving one strike up, I have to do a lot of clicks to do that. With OptionsPlay, you don't. If you want to just move all the strikes up one, you can just click on the right arrow once and it'll move both of the strikes up. If you want to move all the strikes down, you just click on the left arrow. Or if you want to make this a vertical wider, you can just click on width. With a single click of your mouse, you can modify these all you want. You can change the expiration dates, you can change the strike prices, or if you want to get more complex, you can trade condors and butterflies. It's all available to you on the strategy constructor. So if, let's say, you want to look at neutral strategies and you want to trade condors, you can click that. You can do that by the click of a mouse. You can change the width, you can change the wingspans. all like that with a single click and move all the strikes down one or up one. This is designed to make your life a lot easier and be able to compare a call condor to a put condor, something you couldn't do if you were trading on an option chain. You couldn't compare, you know, an iron condor to a call condor. Here, I can do all three side by side and see exactly which strategy I'd prefer to trade. I can even set up the exact same strikes and see which one I'd rather do. So let's just do that real quick. I have different expiration dates, that's why. But this allows you to compare the three side by side and actually see which one gives you the best risk and reward and breaks it all down for you so that you can quickly see which one's best suited for you. So especially for those of you that are currently already trading options, you might want to consider using this tool to help you quickly find the trades that you want to make. And for those of you that are brand new, I hope this tool kind of inspires you to start taking a look at options and make it a little easier for you to understand, as opposed to staring at this huge chain, which sometimes can be a little daunting, especially if you're first starting out. So with that, what I want to do is just quickly sum up. You know, use the tools that's available to you here at OptionsPlay. Type in any stock that you want and quickly see what is the stock, where's the relative strength of the stock. You know, this Johnson & Johnson's a weak relative strength. 1 month and 6 month trends are bearish. This allows me to quickly, within 2 seconds, see that this is a strong bearish stock. So I'm a trend follower. I'm probably going to be looking at some bearish opportunities on the stock, versus if you typed in I don't know, MU, technology stock, as you can see, a strong, very strong stock, technical score of 9, outperforming the market, and the 1 month of trends, 1 month and 6 month trends are bullish. So quickly, within 2 seconds, without having to pull up any technical indicators, without having to pull up any charts and add indicators, this allows me to quickly see what's currently going on with that stock. So with that, you know, I just want to open this up for Q&A. If any of you have any questions, please type them into the chat window, and I'll be able to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Let's see. So Tony's asking, so would the technical score reflect a higher number if the trend is bearish as well? No. So good question. So the technical score is not bullish or bearish. The technical score is telling you how strong the stock is compared to the overall market. So if you're in a strong bull market, the weakest stocks can still be moving higher. So it's all relative to the market. So that's why relative strength, you know, as powerful as it is not the full picture. You need the trend indicator to go along with that. So that's why we use these two in conjunction with each other, because technical score or relative strength only tells you how a stock is performing to the overall market. If the overall market is very strong, even the weakest stocks will likely still move a little higher. And in a very strong bear market, even the strongest stocks are likely going to move lower. So that's why we want to use a combination of the two. So great question. The technical score does not tell you bullish or bearish. It only tells you how it's performing compared to the overall market. Steve, can you explain what the colors mean in the bar underneath the chart? Yeah, so that's just telling you what the 1 month and 6 month trend is and how it's changed over time. So the 1 month and 6 month trend up here is only telling you what the current 1 month and 6 month trend is. It doesn't tell you how long it's been in that trend for and how it's changed over time. That's what these bars here on the bottom tells you. So here during this time, the 1 month and 6 month trends were actually negative and neutral, and until right here, that's when the trend started to turn bullish again. So that's what it tells you. What is the round number? What is the number in the round circle in the trade ideas window? I'm not sure which number you're referring to. If you could clarify for that, that'd be great. Can you explain OCO and OTO? Those are two types of order types, and that's something that you should ask Regal Securities about. So that's getting a little off topic, but those are simply just order types. Does OptionsPlay provide the next earnings date? Absolutely. So it's right here on the bottom of your historical chart. As you can see, it'll tell you when the next earnings date is. It'll even tell you the number of days till that next earnings date. Mary's asking, do you do trainings on individual strategies? Absolutely. So that's actually what our next webinar is going to be, is we're going to be looking at individual trading strategies. We'll be looking at trading debit versus credit spreads. We'll also cover basic calls and puts as well in the next two webinars. The next two webinars are actually both going to be specifically on individual trading strategies. So this webinar was to help you gain a directional view, because you need that before you start trading options. And the next webinar we're going to be doing is going to be on specific option strategies. Kevin's asking, how do you look at the sector strength? Good question. So you can set up a watch list. I have a watch list here set up by sectors, and you have the S&P has 10 sector ETFs, and they track the individual sectors. So XLU, XLP, XLRE, all of these track the individual sectors. So I use those as a gauge for the sectors. Great question. Is GE showing bullish while weak? So let's take a look at the GE. So as you can see, GE is starting to turn around, right? So back here in April is kind of when it bottomed, and right basically here around April 20th, that's kind of when the trend started to turn bullish again. So yes, as we all know, GE has been severely underperforming the market this year. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, but as you can see, it started to bottom here in April, and that's when we got the confirmation here around April 20th, and this has continued going higher, and it's just sitting up right around this 1550 resistance area here. So it's interesting to keep an eye out here on GE. If it breaks above that resistance level, I would expect the trends to turn bullish. That would certainly be a very bullish signal that potentially that GE has recovered and will likely continue going higher. And for those of you that like charting, this looks like an inverted head and shoulders. You have a left shoulder here, you've got the head here and the right shoulder here, and you've got this neckline right around 1550, which is where our calculated resistance level is. If it breaks above that 1550, that would be considered a break of that neckline. So again, this is what this tool allows you to do, is quickly identify all of these things without having to pull up your charts and draw all of these things yourself. It's all done for you on our screens. Craig's asking, I'm really new to options. Where can I see the intrinsic and time value? That's better seen on the chain. So you can actually see those things using the option chains. But what we do here is we really look at the prices of the individual options. We don't necessarily look at whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic. We use the OptionsPlay score to see, is this option cheap or expensive? Because it's hard for you to tell whether an option is cheap or expensive just looking at intrinsic or extrinsic. Can I buy a put for bearish stocks even if the current bullish trend? Yeah, absolutely. You can buy a put on anything, right? So let's say you're looking at Apple here. Just because our indicators are bullish and just because it's a strong stock does not mean that you can't have a bearish view on the stock. If you have a bearish view on Apple, click on I'm bearish and we'll show you which puts you can buy. So you can buy this put here or put vertical, and we're not here to recommend a strategy. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're just providing you indicators, and we'll provide you with strategies regardless of what your views are. So even if your views are completely conflicting with our indicators, you can still click on I'm bearish and take a look at buying puts on a stock that we think is bullish. What's the difference between a put and a put vertical? Great question. So a put is where you're just buying a straight put. A put vertical is actually where you're buying that put. So here I have the June 29th 190 put. A vertical is the same thing. You're still buying that June 29th 190 put for $4.50, which is the strategy you have here. But at the same time, I'm going to sell a lower put, a 177.5 put. And that brings in 78 cents. So that means that instead of paying $4.50 for this put, I'm only paying $3.72. So I've lowered my risk. And what that means is that, so here I have a risk of $4.50. Here I have a risk of $3.72. And my break even here is 185.50. So the stock needs to go down to 185.50 in order for this strategy to be profitable. On the put vertical, because it costs me less, the stock doesn't need to move as much in order for me to be profitable. It only has to move to 186.28. So these are the advantages of trading a put vertical versus buying a put. However, as you can see, the max reward here is capped at $878. Here it's $18,000, but that's only if the stock goes to zero. So I don't really expect the stock to go to zero or even significantly anywhere near that in the next 37 days. So that's why we typically prefer trading this put vertical, because there's no reason to pay for upside all the way down to zero if you don't expect it to happen. There's a couple of questions about trailing stops, and that's a great question. That's a question for Regal Securities. I'm fortunately here just to answer questions about OptionsPlay. I'm not familiar with the order types that are available at Regal Securities, but that is a question that your broker can certainly help you answer. Danny, the question you have regarding showing the widget, please contact support and they'll be able to help you with that. Mark's asking, are the quotes provided in real time or delayed? That depends on what you're subscribed to. So that's, again, a question for Regal Securities on there. Paul's asking, where can I get the previous 3 webinar recordings? Great question. So this is exactly, that's a question for Regal Securities, but all of our webinars are recorded. So I highly recommend you to take a look at the webinar recordings, especially if you've missed any of them.
Tony, I'd like to jump in. We'll be emailing links to the recordings shortly after today's webinar. For all those who registered, we'll send a link to the recording of the webinar, so you should receive it in your email.
Great. I have another question here about in the money or out of the money. A stock is basically in the money if it's below the strike price or above the strike price. That's why we don't tell you, because it's just simply, this 190 puts is in the money because the stock is below the strike price. So that's how you tell. It's there's nothing to necessarily see. It's either below or above the strike price. Any volume data taken into account into these options play? No, not at all, because volume and open interest is not a good gauge for really anything other than what other people are trading. So we don't really care what other people are trading when we analyze these options. We assume all options are liquid, especially for retail. When you're trading 10, 20, 50 contracts, liquidity should not be a problem or a concern of yours unless you're trading thousands of contracts. Then you may be concerned. But aside from that, we don't take a look at volume or open interest because it really has no impact on our trading. A great question here by Victoria is, what is the OptionsPlay score? The OptionsPlay score is simply telling you the risk to reward. So how much red is there on your screen? How much potential risk is there, weighted by how much potential reward are you going to get? And that's telling you a true risk to reward weighted by the probability. So it's really thinking about how much potential reward can I get for the same unit of risk that I'm taking, and we provide them to you on a level playing field so that you can compare apples to apples, different strategies, and that's really why we have the OptionsPlay score here. Tony's asking, where are the deltas? So we don't have the deltas because delta means that you still have to calculate them yourself. We do the calculations for you. So you just have to say Apple's at 188. I think it's going to go down to 180. We'll tell you exactly what your profit is. If we told you the delta, then you'd have to know that, oh, the stock's going to go down $8 and the delta is 60. So I have to figure out 60 multiplied by 80. Then I have to calculate gamma. The Greeks really get confusing very quickly. So that's why we don't have them. The whole point is to prevent confusion. We do all the calculations for you on the back end using the Greeks, and we just show you the output, which is really what you're concerned about. You're concerned about if the stock goes to a certain price on a certain date and vol hits a certain number, what is my expected profits? Now, you can certainly calculate all of those things yourself if you knew the Greeks, but who wants to do all that math? We do all that math for you and just provide you with the output so that you can spend your time actually figuring out which strategy you want to trade, not doing math using Greeks. Pat, thank you very much. I really appreciate this. I'm not sure what OTC over the counter means. I don't know if that was a question or a comment. If I buy an option to open at $1 on a $50 strike price and the stock goes up to 50.50, do I see a profit? That depends on if you're buying a call or a put. And it really depends on how much time goes by. So if it goes up to 50.50 in a few days, you'll probably see a profit. If you hold it all the way to expiration, probably not. Again, there's too many variables in here, and that's really why we have this P&L simulator. You don't have to do any of these calculations in your head. So if you think the stock's going to go to $50.50, you can just put that into your P&L simulator, and it will tell you exactly what your expected profit or loss is. You don't have to do any of these calculations. I know a lot of you have spent some time learning the Greeks and learning how to calculate these things manually for you, and I know that's how I did it and that's how I learned, but you don't have to do it anymore. The tool does that work for you. And I really hope that you guys find this useful in your trading, because we designed this because we spent so much time manually calculating all of these things, and we got sick and tired of manually calculating these things. We just wanted to be able to throw up a strategy, say, General Electric, we're bullish on General Electric, so let's take a look at if GE hits 16 bucks, how much money am I going to make? Instead of having to do all that math on our own, I'll tell you, if you bought this call, you make $139 profit. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to back of the envelope calculations. It does calculations down to the penny for you. Something that you couldn't do on an option chain, right? So if you're pulling up GE here and you wanted to buy a call or a call spread, and you want to know how much profit there was if GE went up 10%, you'd have to do a lot of calculations in your head to do that. We don't have to do that anymore. OptionsPlay does that for you, and I really hope that you guys find this useful. The volatility is already set for you. The volatility is really for those of you that are a bit more advanced, and we cover these things in like the earnings webinars. So for example, if you think the stock's going to jump on earnings and we know volatility comes down after earnings, that's really when you use volatility. But for the most part, you can just leave it set because we've already set it for you. Paul, can the P&L calculator be used for existing positions? Not yet. We do have a P&L calculator for existing positions. That's a new functionality that we're releasing. It's something we're talking to Regal Securities about. So please let them know that that's something you're interested in, because it is something that we think is quite useful, is helping you guys also manage your positions. So keep that in mind. That is a new functionality that we are hoping to release to you guys soon. So that seems to be all the questions here so far. Any other questions? Thank you so much for everyone that said thanks and felt that this was useful and helpful. That's why we created this, and I'm really happy to hear that you guys are using this tool. This is really designed to help you guys make your trading as easy as possible. Does E-minis come up in the software? No, because this is not a futures trading platform. Paul, you have it for indefinitely for now. We have a fairly long contract with you guys, so you guys should have access to this for quite a bit of time. We just launched a few months ago, so this is a relatively new product that's available to all of you guys. Any last questions? You're welcome, David.
Well, thank you, Tony. Good timing as we're just starting to wind down, and thank you for taking the time to answer all the questions and going over all the OptionsPlay and the features. So it's been great. You did a great job, and thank you everyone for attending. Just a reminder that this is where you can find OptionsPlay in your platform across the tab. If you're having any problems locating it, please contact the customer service team of your broker. And with that said, stay tuned for our next webinar. We don't have it scheduled exactly yet, but it'll be in a few weeks. And so I will be sending out an email. If you registered for this one, you'll be getting the next email invite for our next OptionsPlay webinar. So thanks again, everyone, for attending, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.